Welcome to Fueling Conversations, a sport nutrition education network podcast with Dr. James Fleming. In today's episode, we're joined by Jake Weeks, a sports nutrition expert and personal trainer with a unique journey from professional football to running his own fitness business. Jake shares how he combined his passion for nutrition and training to building a successful career, highlighting the importance of adapting nutritional advice to individual needs and cutting through industry misinformation. He also discusses the crucial distinction between the role of a personal trainer and a registered nutritionist, sports nutritionist and or dietitian when it comes to giving nutritional guidance. Beyond the expertise, Jake takes us through the evolution of his business, covering everything from social media marketing and seminars to joining Lift in the Bar as an employee. He provides valuable insights on pricing strategies, client acquisition, and staying ahead of the ever-changing fitness industry. This episode is packed with practical advice for fitness professionals and anyone looking to navigate the world of health and nutrition. Let's get started. Welcome to another SNEN podcast. We're lucky to be joined by Jake Weeks, who's actually one of my old, I will start again. Right.
Love it.
What am I trying to say? One of my old colleagues, not peers. What is it when you're a
peers?
student?
Yeah, it's peers.
Yeah.
No? Peers.
I don't mind. All right, we'll
The person I know.
Someone, just a guy. All right. Right, let's go again. Hi guys, and welcome to another SNEN podcast. Today we're lucky enough to be joined by Jake Weeks, who's actually one of my old peers from the MSc at St Mary's several years back. So I guess we'll just crack straight on and just thank you for joining us today, Jake. And if you can just start telling us a little bit about kind of your background and then your career to date and to sort of set the scene.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me on. So I guess in terms of the nutrition side of things, did my MSc in sports nutrition at St Mary's, right? That was preceded by a sports science degree, which was preceded by basically professional football for me as a youth. That was my sporting upbringing, I guess. And then post MSc, well, whilst I was doing the MSc, I was working as a personal trainer in the city, and then post MSc set up my own personal training business in a gym, which I've been running for the last 8 years. 8 years, yeah, 8 years or so. And then now also run that whilst also educating personal trainers. That's the very quick blast through of my career to date from there.
We'll get into that. And I just remember loosely, actually, back in my head, you were a goalkeeper, right? And did you say you saved the penalty from Marcus Rashford, or did I make that up?
Marcus Rashford didn't score past me, then when we played. Yeah. So, I mean, look who the real winner is now, eh? So,
So, I guess it'd be a nice place to start with, because I know we have a lot of students or aspiring kind of sports nutritionists that also have kind of PT or coaching qualifications. How have you navigated that kind of love for the training and coaching and embedding nutrition in your kind of day-to-day? We'll get into the lift the bar stuff a bit later, but I think if we focus predominantly on that kind of early transition post MSc would be really good.
Yeah, I think nutrition popped up really quickly in regards to the world of personal training, I guess. Like, I thought when I was going into personal training, maybe it'd be more heavily dominant on the exercise side of things, but actually, especially when I started my own business, it was working around a lot of people that were focusing around weight loss or trying to do things, half marathons, 10Ks, marathons, blah, blah, blah. And quickly you realize that like food becomes such an important aspect of it all. So I guess it was becoming, rather than just focusing on the exercise, like how do I integrate some of this nutritional stuff that I know, because I know a fair bit of it having done BSc and MSc stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there that can be integrated. And I guess it was then just developing structures and methodologies and different ways of integrating nutritional advice to people that need it in order to like lose weight, gain muscle, the typical things, right, that we're looking for. And it's all of that goes towards improving health. Typically with my clientele, it's less about professional sports, etc. It's more about kind of feel better, improve health markers, lose weight, like smaller dress sizes, smaller clothes and things like that, look better, feel better within themselves with the confidence side of thing. And it became quickly about that. I don't think it was terribly difficult to start doing that, right? When you're working with the general population, I guess the knowledge foundations they have around these things is typically pretty low, just purely because the information that's out there is like, I'm thinking 10 years ago, it was less accessible for good information than it is now. And it's been crazy what's happened over the last 10 years in that regard, social media and controversial things that get put up on a day to day. Yeah. Like big personalities that like to make things up and stuff like that. So it's getting people, actually steering them onto the pathway where you're like, look, despite what you've heard or seen or think actually there's some fundamental stuff that can't be changed irrespective of what one person says versus the other. Like the laws of physics, right? It's one, there's things there that just can't change. So get that understanding first, and then we can go from there and develop your food habits, your preferences, etc., to get where you want to go. I think that's kind of in my ethical standpoint on it all. Really, it's like, rather than having one set view and going, this is how it's done, do it my way, otherwise it's wrong. It's more like, there's lots of ways of doing this, but we need to make it work for you. And that's kind of how I've built myself around it all.
Nice. We're getting to that navigating space. I think it's interesting because obviously you're coming from a general pop space, obviously crosses over with targets and goals and juggling that aspect. But the idea that it's all based around well-being and health is obviously the same for anyone, really, isn't it? We've spoken about it across many kind of chats, which is interesting. How did you, I guess really interesting for those that are in this space, how did you formalize your nutrition support within your training and within your business? Because I know that's obviously a loaded space, particularly for online nutrition consultancy, unregulated, unregistered people. We're not going to touch on that too much, but how did you differentiate? Because obviously you spent a lot of money and did the formal MSc, whereas a lot of people do a nutrition course, a personal training course, which now can be online in a few weeks. They may do or may not have half a day's worth of nutrition, or more, or not much more typically. How did you do that?
Yeah, to preface that so people understand actually what is and isn't technically allowed in the space, I think it's really useful to understand that, as far as I'm still aware, the term nutritionist is still unprotected. So anyone, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can call themselves said thing, right? So there are people out there that will use that term because they've done half a day's worth of nutrition in their level 3, for example. I think in terms of dealing with things like eating disorders, etc., naturally, then personal trainers can't touch that because they are not dietitians. That's a different term. That's a protected term that gives you insurance and the ability to work with said clientele around those things. Whereas like things like the sports nutrition MSc, right? Like we've gone through very much like being able to express what potential foods somebody can eat, for example, in terms of like pre-sports nutrition, for example, right? And making weight if we were looking at combat sports. So like that I suppose the MSc provides you the opportunity to not dictate someone's food, but offer advices around it. Whereas a level 3 personal training, in theory, you shouldn't be telling someone what to eat, but you can advise around calorie intakes, macronutrients on a general scale, right?
It's quite grey, isn't it? That's like you say. That's the difficulty and the challenge. Yeah. That's what, again, like the SCNR is kind of trying to be a quality standpoint of what people have done from an education standpoint. So I think that's so misunderstood and not maybe ignored by some that know it. But also there's a lot of trainers out there that just didn't know that's the thing. Like, because if they've grown up in the last 5 years getting their qualification, they just see loads of people doing it. So they're like, oh, well, it must just be part of my qualification. So that's okay if they don't know, that's fine. Then taking that into my stuff, then essentially I've drip fed it. So like when I first started, it was very much right, let's just work on the macros. I built my comfort to delivering it much with what was necessary and needed for my clientele. So I was like, right, let's look at the macros and let's just try and make those work. And then I started to understand that actually
I'm not even leading the horse to water at that point. I think I'm just telling them numbers, and they're like, yeah, I kind of get it, but my kebab says it takes 2,500 calories out of my day. What is that? And I'm only meant to have 1,500. What do I do there? And it's like, okay, there's some more. There's another layer that's needed there. So it's kind of going from that really broad spectrum and then going, okay, cool. Let's focus on these are the types of food that potentially have more of protein, more carbohydrate, more fat, just to raise awareness up of food. Because I started to notice general population again, the understanding of food, what's actually in it was quite low, typically with my clientele. And then just carried on layering it, just literally whatever popped up along the way. I kind of went, right, okay, we need a bit more education around that. I'm having more conversations around why fasting is a legitimate strategy, but why it's also not for everyone. Because again, I don't know if you guys see it so much as I do, because obviously I live in this space every day, and like things tend to cycle on like a 5 to 10 year cycle, and intermittent fasting's come back around. So like it's and you know, if it fits in macros and paleo and carnivore and all this jazz that comes around, and it's nutrition extremists trying to stand out when actually they're ignoring all the principles, right? So essentially everything with my clients, I've just tried to teach them the principles and go, we can manipulate this to your spectrum, if that makes sense.
So how did you, again, trying to delve in a little bit here, how did you differentiate yourself from those that had just the level 3 qualification? I know you've got your own business now. We'll touch on that a little bit later, but when you first went in post MSc and you were still very much, I want to drive this personal training space, how were you, how did you manage to differentiate yourself as someone with that higher level of knowledge, perhaps?
I say this in a nice way. I think my confidence in delivery is probably the first part. So the space I went to work in when I started my own business, I was the only one with a BSc, only one with an MSc. So like that stands out when it's just on your profile board anyway. But I'm a fairly proactive person in the sense of I was running seminars. So I ran like how to lose weight seminars, and I did a nutrition seminar, etc. And people spoke about those. Like the first nutrition seminar I did had like 9 people turn up to it, which is I was buzzing with, but I'd only been there for a couple of months. But then the next one had 90. So it's because those people had spoken to people. 90, yeah. I had to run I had to run 2 seminars because I couldn't. It was only a spin studio, so I only had 45 chairs, so I had to run 2 back to back, which was amazing, right? But that's because the people took the information and was like, that was actually useful. And again, I wasn't teaching them to suck eggs, but I wasn't far off it, So, but I suppose that's how diluted information is nowadays, and I think I tried my best to give people practical things to take away with them rather than here's a load of information that you're going to forget as soon as you leave the door. Here's some things to remember it by setting little silly tasks and being engaging with them in that respect, and getting people to really actually think about their scenarios. That would probably be the main differentiator, really, and just being friendly in the gym, like talking to people, showing a genuine interest. Nothing actually to do with nutrition other than being a decent human.
Yeah, nice.
That's actually, I mean, that's half of it, right? Like it's how you communicate, and confidence comes across in that, but also just that is part of your BSc and MSc, isn't it?
Yeah, big time. Because
how do you work with people?
Yeah, and it's funny, like my parents like would always look at me and go, "Why did you even bother doing the education? Because you could be a PT without spending £60,000 in education, right?" They see the big number, but they don't see the
when you put it like that.
Foundations. Yeah. It's true though, right? But having the scientific foundations of understanding of how everything works has given me the confidence to very confidently say no, actually, like rather than arguing, but in a better way of talking to people. It's like, no, actually, this is how it works. Not although the world says this, it actually does this, which is why those people are spouting stuff that maybe isn't particularly facilitative for change. Whereas if we look at it this way, you might actually experience decent results and not hate the process.
Yeah, I really like that. I guess that leads us in nicely into a very contentious space. But how did you navigate that space too? Because personal training is probably even more so than the nutrition kind of led by, well, not led by, but there's lots of noise out there on socials and lots of followers and lots of online support and things that have got maybe based on people that are just have a massive backing. How did you navigate drip feeding your messages, like you've said, on social media, or utilizing those platforms to help support your values and your principles? Because I know I obviously saw some of your materials as you were developing them in the early days, and there were packages and then there were educational programs and stuff, and it kind of formed part of your business. But yeah, can you talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think again, it's one of those things that it definitely didn't start out like that, right? It was very much like person to person. Let's work with each other. Let's develop on whatever we're doing. Da, 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 da. As I got more clients, it was like, actually, how can I'm having the same conversation 8 times a day type of thing, 5 days a week. It's like, okay, cool. Like, how can we forum this where I deliver it once, we all learn together, it becomes more efficient on my time, first and foremost, but also it becomes evergreen for them that they can access it anytime. So that was when I kind of created like a little Facebook group for my clients. Yeah, super basic. Put in PDFs or little videos in there going like, you guys have been chatting about protein intake this week, for example. So what I've done, I've paid for someone to create a recipe pack. Here's a high protein recipe pack for you guys. There you go. There's something you can tangibly go away with because we keep having this conversation and this will be helpful. And then that kind of continued really. And then like based off like having a website and then put it all on the back end of a website rather than a Facebook group and things like that through fear of Facebook shutting down at one point in time and all that jazz. But yeah, I think it's just see what people care for and build something to it rather. I've wasted a lot of time as well making a lot of stuff that people think they want and then never use it. So, but again, it's educational in my sense as well.
So this possibly goes slightly going back a bit, but it's a conversation I was having with some practitioners the other day. Like, have you found over the years, have more of your client base come from word of mouth, or has it come from those sort of social media based strategies and sort of insight on that? Or maybe it's hard to tell and it's a bit of both, but have you seen a dominance of one or the other, and has it changed over time?
Yeah, this is hilarious because this is going to make me sound like a horrendous trainer, but like I don't actually get loads of word of mouth from people I've trained. It's hilarious. And I've asked them why, and it's because they don't want their friends to either know that they're getting PT, some of them, or they actually don't want me to also know their friends, so that there's no like weird interchangeable stories from like people's lives going, oh, that's fine, that's privacy thing, that's absolutely cool. So when I was in the commercial gym, because I left about 6 months ago, a lot of my clientele came from people watching me personal train. So like just voyeurs from the gym floor, essentially, just being like, oh, I saw you training this person. You looked engaged. I thought I'll come and speak to you. Or it was just from me talking to people, coming to my seminars, etc. That was probably the first 5 years of how things have happened. Then the last 4 or 5 years, the social media side of things, I suppose, has backed up what people see in the gym. So where I got busy, I didn't have enough time to talk to people because I was literally always training people. So my social media at the time was very much like client based. I was like, this person's gone from here to here, not necessarily transformations, but like they had a bad back. Now they're deadlifting 100 kilos, for example. And like people were looking at that going, oh, I can see your sessions. These are really nice. These look really cool. I want in, etc., etc., etc. Then we had a few more clients that were happy to like give testimonials on camera and say things they didn't mind us sharing and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really funny. Just actually from straight out word of mouth referrals, like I get more referrals from people that have never trained from me, but have seen me train people than I've had from my own clients. And that's purely because they want me to themselves. They've said that, which isn't
that's
typical.
Quite interesting.
That's really not typical. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that is actually reflecting on it though. I guess that is one distinction between training and nutrition. Because I think I'd probably be the same. Like I probably wouldn't want my friends sharing my coach in the same way, necessarily. Whereas my nutritionist, I might be like, yeah, sure.
I think there's like people perceive stereotypes and stigmas attached to these things. Like so in its most blunt form, with weight loss clients, for example, they'll go, I'm fat, I need help, and I need to pay someone to help me be less fat. That's embarrassing. So like, as in its bluntest form. Whereas, like, obviously, we don't see it like that because we're the practitioners, and we're like, actually, no, but you're investing in yourself to be fitter, healthier, etc. Like, that you want to spread that with your friends, but there's that really personal, emotional thing attached to it, which is why I'm okay with it. It was like really weird and frustrating at the beginning because you're like, everyone's like, word of mouth's the greatest thing. And I was like, my clients hate telling people about me. And it came from more that embarrassed side that they had. Nowadays, that a lot of them are still with me, so actually they're not like that anymore. They actually are quite happy to accept that personal training is a pretty normal thing to have nowadays. But I guess nutrition could be the same as well, though, right? Especially if because people make nutrition seem so simple online nowadays, like people might feel like they're an idiot for needing help with it, which isn't the case. Obviously, we know that, but in terms of the perception on having a nutritionist, people will either presume you've got something like an ED, eating disorder, if people don't know what ED is. Like people might just presume such a thing, or they might just presume you're an idiot because you don't know that you shouldn't eat bread. Which is, that's the way the world looks at these things, right? So there's still lots of work to be done, I think, in the space to beat those stereotypes. But I also think they're always going to be there because it's human nature.
I wonder if it's population specific as well, because like depending what population you work with, because actually like from on the nutrition side, which is good because I'm really bad at marketing. Most of my clients are word of mouth or have been word of mouth in the past, but it may be a slightly different, it's possibly a slightly different demographics. Actually, reflecting back on it, I've worked. Most of my clients are in spaces where, I guess, in a way, nutrition is fashionable. If I'm putting it another way, like CrossFit, the CrossFit space, and or it's integral to the sport, like in combat sports, which is the other place I primarily work. So I wonder if there's actually that. I've never thought like there's that demographic or that is that culture piece. Like you said, people in certain spheres might be embarrassed about it, whereas in other spheres it's like it's part of me being so all into the sport, or whatever it might be. And in the athlete space.
Combat sports is amazing for that. Sorry, James. Go on.
No, I was just saying it's really interesting. It's good to identify that because, like I said, we've had lots of discussions about sport and exercise and nutritionists, and actually every aspect of that is exercising populations, and we probably focus quite heavily sometimes on that elite 2-5% maybe, whereas you've identified maybe some nice tools with the seminars and kind of breaking it down naturally. It's a nice way to get into that kind of mass, but then we also have to be aware of the cultural differences and stigmas and all those sorts of things as well. So I think it's really interesting insight.
If you want to go in one space, do you need to be visible? Whereas in another space, you kind of need to be behind the scenes. It depends where you are. Because it sounds like in your space, that visibility is really key for getting new clients. Whereas, in other spaces, actually the fact that no one knows who your nutritionist is how it spreads word of mouth. Most people don't know who my clients are, and I don't talk about it, but it's that word of mouth. So it's very interesting seeing that contrast.
Yeah, and I think like when you think of combat sports, especially, right? Like it's because of the press that's been around it for making weight over the last 5-10 years, right? It's obviously such a big thing now. If you've got someone that can help you make weight in a way that you're not sitting in a sauna, a hot bath, sweating your tits off for 24, 48 hours pre-fight, only to go and fight crap. Do you know what I mean? If you can do none of that bad stuff and still win and make weight, you're put on a pedestal and you're going, this person's legit amazing because you're so much better and you've done it such a better way compared to the saunas, basically. It's incredible, and I think like but those athlete populations care a lot because they want to win, right? Like you say, it's that extra percentage. Whereas when it's general pop, we're not playing around with that 1% at the top for performance, right? We're playing with the 99% that they're getting pretty off for their life for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, depending on how old the person is. So it's like, I think, communication as well, I suppose. Like the big thing for me is like learning how to communicate with different people, right? Like the way I would communicate to a gen pop person might be different to an athlete. General population, it's like, okay, we just need to get these big stones in order. Athlete is like, right, you've got those things in order, but you need to get these very fine speckles of sand right. Otherwise,
priority order, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Joe, just one thing in terms of Again, just think about the students that might be in this space or wanted to get down this space. How have you navigated the dual aspect of personal training and nutrition? And can you talk us through how you went from commercial gym to then business owner, and what were the challenges and how you navigated some of those challenges? Because I know you've been a business owner for 8 years now, and there's been some new exciting changes the last 6 months, which we'll get onto later on.
So pre me working in having my own business, I suppose I worked 2 years for a private personal training company, where basically it was like you did shifts, they gave you the clients, you trained them, that was kind of it. And you can have ideas, but sometimes they don't get put forwards, so I guess being a business owner is very much like learning on your feet, very much trial and error. Learn what works well, learn what doesn't, make some mistakes, learn from them and move on. And many a mistake has been made over the years as well, right? And I guess for me, it's just the layering aspect. It's like, right, go and do this thing, and then see what else is needed. What can I add to it? Run it for a period of time. Has it having enough of an impact to keep? Yay or nay? If not, see you later. Let's see what else can be done. Running the business, I suppose, like you just become, not only are you practitioner, both exercise, nutrition, you're business owner. So tax, keeping your own diary, paying yourself, and all of these things, and just more things to learn and handle and deal with.
Did these things come kind of naturally in terms of your service? I know you said you trialed things and then got rid of it and trialed new things. Did you ever do anything formally, like a end of year or end of service review with clients? Because some clients might review for a 10-week block. Some you might have had for 10 years. Do you have anything formal that you kind of go, let's get some actual client feedback that's more maybe anonymous or general? Or is that something, or is there anything like that?
Yeah. I do it quite regularly, even now still. So I think the first couple of years I just did end of year reviews every December. Then I was like, okay, well, whilst most of people are staying for that long, there's some people that you lose through the net because they don't stay till December. So I think I tested every 3 months, and that was a bit too frequent for me. So now I just sit on twice a year. So I go sometime in the summer, sometime in the end of year. And just ask general questions. Hold on, let me rewind. Basically, what I started with, once a year, started with that. Fine. I wanted something a bit more frequent. So I went end of 7 days, end of 30 days, 3 months, 1 year. So I had like multiple touch points so I could see, is my first week of business for you serving you as much as you need? Is that first month incredible? Because I want it to be, because if you're only going to try me for a month, I need to make sure you're having the best month of your life. And also then I suppose when it comes to keeping somebody into a routine of wanting to be healthier, fitter, etc., like you're lucky if people give you 30 days. You think of January's in most gyms, like January's a busy, February's it goes back to normal, because the majority of them haven't figured out how to enjoy it. So they quit before they pay their February membership. So my whole premise was, can I make this 30 days as useful and exciting as possible so you want to keep this up? And now I just do that verbally, like with my clients for the first month or so. I do that verbally just because it's less forms to have to read through for me. But I do every 6 months now. Every 6 months, even with clients that I've had since the first week of my business.
I think it's really useful, because obviously you've done the MSc, but that kind of reflective space is so important, and being open to change and navigate. And we had a chat just the other week about being flexible and being able to be dynamic and not being, I guess, too scared of change. I guess one of the things in this space, tell me if I'm wrong, is that if you've got your bread and butter in place and you've got 15 hours of training every week and that can cover the essentials, then I guess you have a bit more flexibility to give things a go, right? If you've got that base. Whereas sometimes if you go into I'm going to go straight into just nutrition in isolation, you don't know, you might not necessarily have that base. Whereas, yeah, this is nice, having that dual aspect career can enable you to kind of test your water a bit more with a bit more kind of safety.
Yeah, and I guess like being self-employed as well, like the financial side of things is always a risk. I was lucky when I did start my own business. I actually lived at home, so whilst parents were charging me rent, it wasn't like what they are today now, having a house. So there was less pressure, but it gave me the opportunity to go and do that. And again, I suppose this is where Lift the Bar enters my life 10 years ago anyway, because they gave me a lot of the tools to try and set up my own business, for example. But yeah, like I like having fingers in pies because again, it keeps me interested in all my things. If I do too, I've learned over the years, if I do too much of one thing, I begin to dislike it. So when I got to 65 sessions a week with the PT, it was too much for me. It was insane. I was insanely busy. It didn't really matter how much money you were making because it was like couldn't spend it. And I had half a day on a Saturday where I could actually relax. But by then I was shattered, so I basically slept through it. And that wasn't the life that I want to lead. So that forced me into change. So that's when I started small group training from within a gym. So I could take some of my clients, keep them, but put them in a service where I could serve them better because I'm not constantly burnt out, but also make their service cheaper so they can actually potentially do this even more frequently or for longer.
I love that.
Because again, the idea isn't to rip people off for money. It's about me being paid fairly, of course, for my knowledge, expertise, and quality, but also, I want exercise and fitness and nutrition to be something that we all have decent access to.
Actually, on picking up on that, because obviously, like you say, it is a balance between being able to eat and live and enjoy your life and wanting to provide a service. How did you, I guess, price your service in terms of I'm not giving away everything for free, but I'm also being able to support clients in the way I wanted to. How did you do a sort of a formal competitor analysis, or was it kind of just based on you doing analysis of time, or did it just kind of happen over time when you were like, this is what I charged before, let's
no, I knew quite frankly I couldn't charge what I was getting, what they were charging in London for me, because I was at the second most expensive gym in London, and I knew coming back to where I was in the suburbs of London, I was like, there's no way people are paying this. So I literally walked in there, went, who's charging what, and they all seemed to be charging around £40 an hour. I was like, I'll do that then. Like, because, and that was purely based on, I've got BSc, MSc, none of you lot do. I'll start there and I'll go from there. I quickly went higher because I was getting a lot of traction. I was like, actually, I am delivering a much better service than everyone else. So I only went like £5 more. So I went to £45, did that for a year or so, 2 years. And then I was like, actually, I've now done my biomechanics courses. I'm implementing a much better service. I've got that community of clients. I've got the nutritional support there now. I've got things so they can go and do their own exercise programs outside of me now. So I was like, that's worth another £5 a month, etc. And across the 8 years, I think I ended up being £25 more expensive than the next person in that gym because I was constantly developing myself and I became more confident in it as well. Like I say, thankfully I'd had that experience in London where I was taking obscene amounts of money for what they were getting, but that wasn't me pricing. It wasn't me charging it, but I was used to seeing big numbers coming through, which is, whereas now I was like, actually, no, I know I'm worth it. I know what I'm giving is really good. If people don't want that, then fine. They have the other options. They can go cheaper if they want. But I've got the results. I've got the knowledge and the ability to help a lot of people here. Go on.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you have any kind of mentor, an official mentor, or anyone there that was there kind of saying, obviously you had the confidence, like you said at the start, and you knew you had something that others didn't have, so you were able to go in and back yourself. But yeah, how did you navigate? Did it just come again through trial and error, or did you have anyone that you kind of lent on for advice? And because these things you mentioned now about backing yourself, continued professional development, the attrition rate in personal training is huge. Dropping the amount of people that get in and they last less than 6 months because they don't have a clue how to necessarily manage these things that you're talking about, or or there's many other things, of course, but I wonder whether you can give us anything on that space to help those that might be looking at going this path.
Yeah, I think the reason that now that obviously I work with Lift the Bar, and I'll explain how they've helped me in a second, but like I think a lot of people drop out because they expect this huge pay in personal training. They expect to come in earning 5, 6 to £10,000 a month doing it, and it's not realistic. It's not. It is possible, but you'd have to charge obscene things, especially when you're brand new into things. I went into it with low expectations of income, and it was Lift the Bar that were my advice sounding board, I guess. Like the premise of Lift the Bar, it's a company for PTs to subscribe to for further development. So they had things on there that were helping me learn how to run a better consultation, how to potentially go and market myself around the gym, the sorts of things I need set up in my business. So like medical forms, T's and C's, you know, there were people in there that were giving me different ideas around how can I get the spotlight on me as a trainer, right? Amazingly, having a pad and paper and writing down my client sessions was that, coupled with using like the big long red resistance bands. They were the two things that made me stand out in the first 6 months of being in that gym, which is obscene because the bands maybe I get, but like writing down a client session should be a fundamental, but it wasn't in that space. So people go, he's the notepad guy. That was genuinely the nickname for the first 3 to 6 months, which is embarrassing, but it's like, cool. It helped me stand out. And then, then it was like, I ran a seminar, I trialed it, and then I said, look, I had 9 people turn up. The feedback was okay, but like there was some people saying it needed to be a bit more interesting. How do I do that? So we bounced some ideas off, and you know, the fundamental subscription of Lift the Bar gives you access to the courses. There's like a small upgrade where you get to speak to people specifically on a regular basis. So I did that, and to be fair, I only just stopped paying for that once I started working for them. So I was paying for that additional support for 6.5 years.
But again, I think it comes back down to you investing in yourself. Some people will look at that as a subscription service and go, well, is it necessary? Is it, what am I going to get from it? And there's lots of different subscription services, right? Lift the Bar aren't the only player in this field.
Absolutely.
So, but I guess I know you mentioned you were doing the extra courses. Education's always been at the kind of forefront of your confidence and your ability to, which is really nice to see as well, because obviously that's what we're trying to develop. Can you talk on now a little bit on your recent transition to Lift the Bar and how you now navigate being a Lift the Bar employee and your own business owner as well?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been a member of Lift the Bar for however long. They've really, really helped me out. They've helped me through COVID and all that jazz as well. Like, you know, it was truly amazing. And then the opportunity came to kind of help out and begin to feed back down. Like my mentality is to always look up and learn from those above. And I still do now. Like I still pay for educations again around things that I don't know. So because there's just so much we won't ever know, but we can keep learning. So then now I've left my commercial gym. I work out of a studio with my clientele. I had to let some of my clientele go just because I don't have the time to train them and do my work within Lift the Bar. But it felt like a nice time for me to begin to teach trainers. You know, like I suppose having me now having been in the industry for 10, 11 years, I guess, all in all, I don't think it's a long time, but actually, when you look at the attrition rate, like you've just mentioned, it is a long time. You know, it does make me experienced in that respect, and that's where my imposter syndrome kicks in a little bit. I have to still kind of, again, much like the confidence thing. Like I know my stuff to an extent, but I need to now understand I actually do have useful things to pass on to people that are just starting or in positions I've been in. So now it's just a case of like I'm building courses for Lift the Bar again around a lot of the online side of things, and programming, exercise and nutrition is the other side of things that I'm quite savvy on in terms of delivering towards clientele and helping people problem solve around clients, I guess. So it's really cool. Like I think in terms of I'm good at time management for the best part. I've learned to juggle and spin many plates at the same time and not let the quality drop too much. I know where my tipping point is, and it's relatively high. Um, because I was doing all of this and also head of a PT for a gym brand last year as well. So, but then I stopped in, again, I took on a little bit too much and then I was like beginning to not enjoy stuff. So one went because lift the bar and my stuff is the stuff I really, really love doing basically.
Where
uh,
where does nutrition fit into the lift the bar space? Does it or
yeah, they have nutrition courses in there for sure. So they've got their educations in there around nutrition where they've had various experts in the field deliver stuff on specifics and general broad stuff as well. So there is nutritional support in there for like how to support the general public. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's stuff specifically for like combat sports, for example, from like working with professional sports athletes. But there's stuff in there, and then with the people I work with one-to-one, almost on that little upgrade thing, you know, I'll help some of the PTs in there kind of know where to explore with a client. If like a classic problem in the world of personal trainers, my client's only eating 1,000 calories and they're not losing weight. Where do we go? And again, if we go back to those kind of laws of nutrition, we know that's probably not true. 99.999% that's not the case. But you need to know how to explore it in a way that doesn't just go, you're a liar to your client, because that's just not going to work. You need to be empathetic. You need to be understanding. You need to know how to question without interrogation and communicate in a way that actually elicits comfort from a person to begin to want to change and stuff like that. So I suppose I help people with that as well. Again, just drawing on experience from my various people I've worked with.
Drawing on that point of like you have got, over 10 years experience in the space now, what has been the biggest changes, be it in culture, be it in problems the clients come with? Like what have you seen as the biggest changes in the health and fitness space over the last decade?
I think from a clientele point of view, not much. I think everyone still has the same problems, the same things keep coming through the door, which is cool. That's absolutely fine. Like, the statistics are going to be in that favor, right? If we have an overweight nation, then there are going to be a large majority of people that want to lose weight. I think the cool thing that's happening is that actually people are beginning to want to be healthier and fitter without necessarily focusing so much on losing weight. And it's one of those things where like I still haven't decided on my viewpoints totally. Like I love the body confidence movement. I love the health at every size movement. I think they all draw upon really good things. I suppose there hasn't been enough time for me to digest and really feel clear about, can you be extremely, extremely, extremely healthy at larger body sizes for longevity's sake of food? Because I don't think there's data on it. But also, I absolutely love the fact that people are, irrespective of body size, getting into lifting weights, getting into being fitter, because ultimately, like, I think my point of view is, if you're doing that stuff, you're hedging your bets for a longer life anyway. Even those in larger bodies, if they're lifting weights, their joints are going to feel better. If they're doing the lifting weights and the cardio side of things, their heart and lungs are going to be able to handle things better. They're going to be able to keep their movements going. They can unlock different aspects of their life that had been restricted to them through not having the strength and the fitness. So I think all of that's actually amazing. So that has changed quite a lot, I think. From a trainer's point of view, I think the make a quick buck thing is around. I don't know whether it's because I'm in my bubble because I see so much of it, that's my perception, or I don't know what the outside people see, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
I still think personal training is misunderstood from a general population point of view. I still think more people need to understand why exercise is great for us, why having better nutrition is useful in that respect. But there's still a bunch of great trainers out there, right? And stuff like that. Like, and there probably could be more. Really, I don't think people think it's saturated, but again, numbers wise, I think the last numbers I saw there was 25 to 30,000 PTs in the UK. And when you've got what we've got now, 70 million population, people say it's saturated, and you go, well, it's a few thousand clients per person if all were to undertake. And that's the thing, right? We're a very small percentage of population, really.
Yeah.
But it just, I suppose, with the world of social media, that makes it seem not the case.
Larger, yeah.
I guess just conscious of time now, Joe, because it's been really, really insightful. Are there any key kind of take homes or messages that you would give to a student or those that have graduated and have kind of dual career aspirations on how to navigate that? Is there any key clear messages that you might be able to give them?
Ooh.
I'm throwing you under the bus there. I haven't given you any teasers.
No, that's fine. I just, you know what, like, help has always helped me. It sounds really ridiculous, but actually, no, it doesn't. It makes sense. Like, if you don't know how to do something, like I say, look up the chain. Who has probably done something similar to what you want to do, or who knows a little bit more than you? Can you speak to them? Can you try and get some advice from them, and be willing to do stuff for that as well, right? So like, I was willing to part with money for said advice because I know that said advice will likely help me make more money in my business. I was so fortunate to fall within Lift the Bar because it was a good place from the get-go. I know there are things out there that maybe aren't as ethical, aren't as you might burn some money because you get burnt from other people. That's okay. But just keep trying to learn, keep trial and error. Don't be scared to make mistakes. Like, there's very few mistakes out there that will ruin you, And if you're making those sorts of mistakes, then you were probably doing something you shouldn't have been doing anyway. So make mistakes, learn from them. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a crap nutritionist or a crap trainer if you try these things. Ask for feedback and do what you enjoy. I mean, enjoy it. It's fun.
I think what's come through really nicely, Jake, here is that obviously the people-centered nature, which falls across personal training and coaching and nutrition, and the fact that you were willing to do workshops and put yourself out there and develop based on your knowledge and confidence was based on that, and then you kind of built momentum, and off the back of that, you kept that kind of core value throughout your practice, and having what it seems like obviously Lift the Bar being a nice kind of almost like a kind of comfort blanket to lean on. Seems to have paid. It's interesting how it's gone full circle, and now you're doing that for other people. So I think it's a nice time to pause it there, and I think this has been a really nice additional avenue that we haven't actually touched on yet in the SNEM, which is hopefully going to help people and build confidence in how to navigate this space. So just thanks so much for your time, and
pleasure for having me on. I appreciate it.